So one of the questions I get on a regular basis is, are the ISKCON leaders, the post-1978 leaders of ISKCON, are they engaged in secret black magic or tantric or satanic worship or principles behind the scenes? Are they using some kind of dark arts to propel themselves into their positions of authority? So let's go back to 1978 when they started having us offer food to 11 conditioned souls. Jayatirtha was one of those conditioned souls, so I complained. I said we should not offer food to Jayatirtha. So later on, the Gang of Four Gurus came to England, and I confronted them. I said, Srila Prabhupada said we have to offer food to the pure devotee, and we shouldn't change that. And if we change that, it will be very dangerous for our movement. Prabhupada said if you change the deity worship, it's very dangerous. So I said we shouldn't be offering food to a contaminated being, because then the food will be contaminated. And in the case of Jayatirtha, the food will be contaminated with intoxication and drugs consciousness. He's in an intoxicated and lusty state, so the food that is offered to him will be contaminated with that consciousness, because in the Vedic principle you become what you worship. And Prabhupada says, the businessman idolize a big businessman. A person that wants to become good at playing golf idolizes a good golf player. So you become what you worship. The people who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, and so on and so forth. So the people who worship lusty and intoxicated beings will become lusty and intoxicated. That's pretty simple to understand. Now later on, I had a lady devotee friend who used to be a witch. She used to be a pagan, satanic cult person. And she said that's absolutely correct. In the satanic principles, they put curses on food to influence people. They can make people do things they wouldn't ordinarily do, and they can harm people. They can put a curse on food to make a person suffer. So, yeah, the principle of contaminating food is well known in the satanic and tantric and black magic circles. So ISKCON officially became part of that. It had everybody offering food to contaminated beings, which contaminated the food, which contaminated the consciousness of the people in ISKCON. And so Jayatirtha, later on, he left. He took hundreds of people with him and started the Peace Krishnas, and they were all taking intoxication and selling designer drugs and all that. So they were all eating food offered to an intoxicated being who, is attracted to illicit behavior, and that became a problem for all of the worshippers of Jayatirtha. And then Hantaduta, he liked guns, so all of his followers were carrying guns around. And Bhavananda liked expensive jewelry, so his top disciples were all wearing expensive jewelry, and so on and so forth. So they were becoming what they were worshiping. Now, if we have also some members of this group who are homosexuals and pedophiles, and people are worshiping homosexuals and pedophiles and offering food to that state of consciousness, then that will contaminate those people, and then they will be sympathetic to homosexuals and pedophiles, or they may even become homosexuals and pedophiles, and that's definitely what happened in ISKCON. We had a big infusion of that problem going on in the society. So, yeah, you offer food to those beings, you become those beings, or you become sympathetic to those beings, or you become like those beings. You become influenced by that consciousness. So the fact that people even have to ask me the question, is there a satanic influence in ISKCON, means there's a problem. Why would anyone even have to ask that question? So, yes, I do believe it is satanic. Now, was the intention originally, I can't say for sure, but that is definitely what happened. Now later on, Hansaduda was having a big fire sacrifice behind the Berkeley Temple, and some of the Bengali devotees were saying that in India, the GBC had placed tantric curses on Hansaduda to make him fall down. So they were using black arts against Hansaduda, supposedly, allegedly, and so they were making a fire sacrifice to counteract the black magic curses that the GBC had been putting on Hansaduda. And these Bengali devotees said they were there and they overheard the GBC saying they were going to put black magic curses on Hansaduda. Now one of these Bengalis said that curses had been put on me. So by their tantric black magic guy, and supposedly some kind of curse had been put on my head that I would be suffering some mental derangement or who knows what. But it seems like after that, Hansaduda had headaches, Satsrup had headaches, Jayapataka nearly got his head cut off, somebody slit his throat, then he had a stroke. Hare Krishna had headaches, this guy had headaches, that guy had headaches, Jayatirtha's head was chopped off. So this Bengali person later on told me their curse backfired. It went back to attack them. But yeah, so I have heard different rumors and discussions about black magic being used by the leaders of ISKCON. So then Hare Krishna, who was one of the gurus, claims that the vibhuti dust that he had been getting from Jayapataka's tantric guy was, in fact, a dangerous Western psychotropic drug. The story I heard was that Hare Krishna had the vibhuti dust analyzed, and it was psychotropics that were made in the West. So it looks like they were trying to cause trouble for Hare Krishna by giving him this bad vibhuti, which was poisonous, you could say, if it was actually, in fact, dangerous psychotropic drugs. Then, of course, we had the incident where the GBC were all getting ghost busted by their tantric, which raises the question, what kind of gurus are full of ghosts? So the story I heard was that Prabhu Vishnu had stood up and said, oh, this ghost busting is bogus, and the tantric guy said, well, that's the ghosts in you telling us that we're bogus. You're just infested with ghosts. So this was like an excuse they were using at the time. Yeah, we have ghosts in us, and that's why we're falling down and having all these problems, because we have these ghosts and we need a ghost buster. And this ghost buster was going around to all the temples. He was ghost busting people. He came here to California, and I was outside the temple, and when he came out after he had just ghost busted a bunch of people, I was kind of slinking down in my van. This was at night. He couldn't see me, so I would just had my eyes over the top of my dashboard, and I waited until he was right by my van, and I popped my head up and I said, hey Tuteshvara, it's me, your old buddy. And he really looked like he had seen a ghost. For real. He just ran and ran and ran the other way. He just had to get out of there. So, yeah, I mean, who does that? Who says that the pure devotee of God is infested with ghosts, or multiple ghosts, or many ghosts? So you need black magic, tantric, things. Now, they gave me Chiteshwar's card, his business card, and it says Pagal Baba Ashram. Pagal means crazy. Pagal Baba Ashram. So, their gurus are crazy, and they need some crazy ghost busting guy. Now, he would chant mantras and put ghosts into a bird cage. Really? Ghosts are going to go into a bird cage? I don't know. But they're using these things as excuses. Now, I have let's say a love-hate relationship with the ex-child student of ISKCON. One of his relatives says that ISKCON is a full-on satanic child-sacrificing cult. And she evidently has witnessed some of these types of things going on, and he is angry with me for encouraging her. Well, I'm not exactly encouraging her, but I would have to say that most ordinary kids who grow up in ordinary society, who eat hamburgers and all the rest of it, they don't think they were part of a satanic child sacrificing cult. They don't have that idea in their brain. So how did this person get that idea in the first place? Who infused that idea into her mentality? So I would have to say that she had some severely traumatic experience for her to believe stuff like that. And I've heard other students also saying horrible things happened to them and they saw horrible sacrifices going on, stuff like that. So I can't verify any of that, but I would have to say normal kids don't say they have had that type of experience. So what I've been telling this on and off friend of mine is he should validate that she had some kind of trauma, some severe trauma, which led her to believe that she was part of a satanic cult. Something happened. And I validate these people's, let's say, trauma. I can't validate exactly their story, but I do know that something very traumatic happened to these people, and that is why they believe ISKCON is a satanic cult. But if we consider that ISKCON has people worshiping homosexuals, pedophiles, and deviants, yeah, that's satanic. I mean, seriously, something is wrong with that. Now, if adults want to worship satanic beings and contaminated beings, I don't have a problem with that. The problem in ISKCON is they're having children worship homosexuals and pedophiles and deviants, and that is having a bad influence on children. And that's why these children later on believe they were in a satanic cult or whatever traumatic thing that's going on with them. They've had traumatic experiences. So, yes, I do believe that having children worship contaminated beings is a satanic principle. You know, it's just like in the old days, the demons would insist that they be worshipped, you know, like Hiranyakasipu, and so on and so forth. Because by being worshipped, that would contaminate and influence the mentality of the citizens. That's the whole idea. The principle is to get people to worship good things or bad things. And then that will influence their mentality. It's a well-known principle. So in ISKCON, people worshipped homosexuals and pedophiles and lusty beings and porno swamis and intoxicated people. And then we had all those problems going on in the society, which is no surprise to me because you become what you worship. Hello. This is a very clearly identified idea. You become what you worship. It's not only a Vedic principle, it's known even in mundane society that you become, you know, the person you idolize or you worship. So we're worshiping contaminated things. We're getting a contaminated result. Now, one of the results, according to a friend of mine who reads my blog, and she is a Mormon, and somehow or other her husband became interested in my blog. She reads it. She's a end-of-life care nurse. She specializes in end-of-life care. She sees how I'm constantly posting one story after the next of devotees getting cancer and dying before they're even, say, 65. So she thinks there's some very contaminated thing going on in the Hare Krishna society. And she thinks it's malefic and it's, in other words, demoniac or satanic. Something is wrong. So many people should not be getting cancer before they reach 65. So is it because they're eating contaminated food? Well, maybe. It's certainly not helping the situation. So, yeah, it's having all kinds of impacts and influences. You know, worshiping evil or contaminated things will produce evil and contaminated results. This is all very well known and very well documented in the Vedas. We cannot worship contaminated things and expect a pure result. It's just not going to work that way. Now, I am participating in a forum where they are tracking molesters and pedophiles and, let's say, sexual predators who have been floating around ISKCON. And they just keep turning up here and there and here and there. And there is a reason for that, because the consciousness of protecting this type of person is an element that's pervading ISKCON in many respects. So they tried to get rid of this Lakshmi Moni, and all kinds of leaders came to her defense. No, we need to keep her. But wait, she's a troublemaker. She's caused a lot of trauma for a lot of children. She should be removed. But she has friends in high places. And there's so many examples like that where the effort to remove different kind of, let's say, predator people is resisted. We can't get rid of those people. You know, Bhakti Vikas Swami made a lecture where he was more or less defending being an apologist for predators. And then he deleted the video because there was a lot of backlash and people were complaining. And then we have the Namarasa people. They made a video how the Ritviks are deviants. The Ritvik thing is an insult to Prabhupada, really. Well, yeah, because we're on to these guys. You know, we're on to their whole agenda, making children worship predators and deviants. And so they don't like the Ritviks because we are exposing their agenda, their real agenda. Their agenda is to have people worship deviants, predators, lusty, intoxicated beings, porno swamis, and so on and so forth. And that contaminates the citizens, which is very, very evident in ISKCON, because you have all these predator problems going on left, right, and center around the society. So, yes, I believe ISKCON has a form of satanic worship going on, because worshiping any contaminated thing is satanic. We don't worship contaminated things. As a Vedic principle, we only worship pure beings, and of course Krishna is a pure being, so we have to worship his representative. His representative has to be a pure being, and worshiping contaminated things produces contaminated results, very well known, even in the mundane society. And that's why I have a friend, devotee, and he goes to Taco Bell sometime, and he says eating at Taco Bell is more pure than eating at a temple, because everybody at Taco Bell believes in Jesus. And so when they say grace, they offer grace to Jesus. They would never offer grace to a homosexual, a pedophile, a lusty being, an intoxicated being. They would never do that. So ISKCON just has these problems repeating over and over again. There's a lusty person, and they move him around here and there. They have to try to explain all these different problems they're having. Then on top of all that, you have a cancer epidemic going on. So all this is connected, in my opinion. It all stems from worshiping contaminated things. It all stems from what Prabhupada originally said. If you change the deity worship, this is the most dangerous thing for my society. You cannot change this principle of worshiping the pure devotee, or there will be all kinds of problems and tragic results, which we see over and over again. So the process is very simple. You worship Krishna by worshiping as a pure devotee. You cannot worship a contaminated thing and expect that that is going to be accepted by Krishna. It won't be accepted. And Prabhupada personally told me that. I was helping install the deities in India before they were shipped off to the USA. And Prabhupada told me, this process of offering food to Krishna cannot be changed. And if it is changed, the food is not accepted by Krishna. So all this was started in 1978. We were offering food to Jaitirtha and 11 contaminated souls, and then the society was contaminated in so many ways. And Sridhar Maharaj, he authorized that process. Ryan Maharaj went along with that process. All these quote-unquote advisors from India. And even now, the Namarasa people, they're all going along with this principle that we can offer food to contaminated beings. But this was never authorized by Prabhupada. It's not authorized. It doesn't work. It's not accepted. And even Radharani wrote a paper in 1978 saying that ISKCON has become the International Society of Bhoga Consciousness. Bhoga means unoffered food, and if you eat bhoga, you're eating sin, and if you eat sin, there's going to be sinful results. And we see those sinful results manifesting in ISKCON, left, right, and center, whether it's falling down people, whether it's pedophiles, whether it's cancer, whether it's so many inauspicious things. You cannot have these principles turned upside down. So you have to offer things to the pure devotee. If you offer it to conditioned beings or contaminated beings, that is satanic, according to the Vedic principle. So, in sum, do I believe that ISKCON has fallen under the influence of satanic principles? Yes, I believe that right out of the gate. Immediately, as soon as I started offering food to Jayatirtha, I said, this is wrong. This is contaminated, and this will produce bad effect. And Jayatirtha was offering LSD to the Shalagram deity, and so on and so forth. So things just spiraled down. Things just got worse and worse and worse. And now we have in ISKCON a bunch of Bengali cooks, and a friend of mine said many of these Bengali cooks that are hired by ISKCON don't have a very high standard. They're not very clean. Some of them still eat fish. Who knows what's going on with these guys? So that's just making things worse. The contamination is just deteriorating more and more and more, in my opinion, and in the opinion of more people. So I believe the original problem was that Prabhupada was poisoned by a cabal of leaders, and then we were offering food to the members of that cabal, and in essence poisoned the ISKCON society in so many ways. And that's why my young friend, who I have a love-hate relationship with, as soon as I quote Prabhupada, he's angry, he's furious, he's going to block me. Oh, you can't say that. Well, I didn't say that. I'm quoting Prabhupada. So if I tell him, Prabhupada says, we neophytes cannot take sins, he says, well, sure we can take sins because Krishna is taking all the sins. No, 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 that is not what Prabhupada said. So he just has no respect for Prabhupada because he has been poisoned, he has been contaminated. He has got the satanic beej or seed, and it has poisoned his mind. He can't think now of what Prabhupada actually said and what does Prabhupada's statements actually mean in real life. It doesn't compute on his brain because his brain has been infected in so many ways. So yeah, Prabhupada was poisoned, and his society was poisoned in so many ways. They kicked out the devotees, they molested the children, and then you got to worship the people who created that whole situation. That is, for sure, satanic principle. You can't worship deviants. And you can't worship even an ordinary conditioned soul, never mind full-fledged deviants. It's not going to work. And if you do that, the Vedic idea is worshiping deviation creates more deviation. It infects the worshippers, and it makes the situation spiral down worse and worse and worse, which has been going on in ISKCON. So a number of devotees are saying that the leaders of ISKCON were like Judas. They betrayed Prabhupada in so many ways. And so if we worship Judas, we're going to have a lot of problems. That is for sure. Anyway, I hope this helps. Hari Hari Bol.